Welcome back. I'm talking with Ben Emlyn-Jones about some of his areas of research, and one of these is you have followed the work of Kevin Annett, who is Canadian, I believe.
Yes.
Now, I've covered very briefly on this show instances of child abuse, in particular the Holly Gregg case, and what a lot of people don't realise is, I think, the subject of paedophilia, if you read the mainstream press and the mainstream view, is that it's like men who stand on street corners looking at kids in parks who are these paedophiles, who were, you know, they're basically misfits or what have you, rather than there being some carefully organised, orchestrated paedophile rings that include people in very high places, such as judges and senior police officers, social workers, and the list goes on and on and on. And this is something which a lot of researchers are trying to expose. In particular, Kevin Annett.
Yeah.
Just tell us about who Kevin Annett is and what he's about.
Kevin Annett, Reverend Kevin Annett, as he was a vicar. He was vicar in the United Church of Canada, and he was the local vicar of a village called Port Alberni in British Columbia. Now, he took up the position as a young priest in this church, and parishioners came up to him and talked to him, you know, after the service, and among them were the Indians. Now, and these Indians started telling him some very disturbing stories. It's important to realise that Canada, like Britain and most other countries, has laws where you have to send children to school. And Canada set up a system run by the churches called the residential school system, and this operated between 1890 and 1992. The residential schools were very similar to English boarding schools, except they were there to supposedly educate the children of the remote Indian tribes. Now, what these Indians were saying, these Indians who'd attended these residential schools as children, were telling Kevin Annett, was that basically half the children who went into those schools never came out. The ones that did come out were telling him stories of torture, murder, medical experiments, sexual abuse, and almost every atrocity you can imagine being committed against very small children. And Kevin immediately began making inquiries in the church, because a lot of these residential schools, as I say, were run by his own church. Others were run by the Church of England, the Catholic Church. Lots of different denominations were involved in it. The moment he started making these inquiries, he was stonewalled. He received no reply about it at all. And that what followed then was actually a story that's quite similar to my own when I was drummed out of my job. The bishops and everyone else in the church authorities kept coming to him and saying they'd received complaints about completely unrelated matters. Mm-hmm. And he was basically put through a disciplinary procedure. And he describes this in great detail in his book. He's written a book called Unrepentant, and there's a film called Unrepentant as well, which is you can watch free online. It's a feature-length documentary about this, but keep a box of tissues handy because it's very disturbing and very upsetting indeed.
Right.
What happened then was Kevin was basically sacked. He was defrocked from the church and sacked and sent packing, basically. His wife was paid by the church to divorce him. Some of his children he's not seen for years. He's basically been put through sheer hell as a result of making these inquiries. Right. He's stuck by his guns. He has very bravely stood up to these people, and I got a lot of admiration for him. That's why there's no excuse for me not to do it. And he's currently travelling the world lecturing on various issues. He's been in Britain a couple of times, although twice actually he's visited this country. The second time, unfortunately, he was arrested by immigration and sent back.
So what was the reason for that?
They come up with some, I can't remember exactly, it was some trumped-up excuse, but he was going to speak at a public meeting at Trafalgar Square in London, and they basically sent him packing. I can't remember the actual details, but everything is available to be seen on his website, Hidden from History. Mm-hmm. And he's a good man, he's a good friend, and I respect him deeply, and I'll do everything I can to assist him.
I'm led to believe that there's some British involvement in what was going on in these communities in Canada. Is that?
Yeah,
just tell us about that.
Yeah, there's an involvement. The government know about it. The corporations know about it, and what's more,
The British
royal
government know about it.
well, yes. I mean, the British government and Canadian government are linked. The Canadian is a British Commonwealth country, and the Queen is, of course, head of state in Canada, and the Queen is actually personally accused in Kevin's work.
Right, but by who? By Kevin Annett?
By Kevin, yeah. I can't remember if it's book or in a film or somewhere else, or maybe one of his lectures, but he mentions an incident that happened in the 1950s, soon after the coronation, in which the Queen and Prince Philip turned up at one of these residential schools. This was reported to him by one of the...
What year does he claim this happened?
I can't remember, sometime in the 1950s, I think.
Okay, so it's not long after the coronation.
Yeah, when she was the new Queen. One of the Indian witnesses has said to Kevin that the Queen and Prince Philip turned up at one of these schools and left with a few of the children in their company, and those children were never seen again.
Right.
Now, this fits in with what other people have come forward and said. There are other witnesses who have reported about the royal family and people in government being involved in the abuse of children.
Right.
Such as satanic ritual abuse.
Okay. So he alleges that the Queen and Prince Philip took some children that were never seen again. That's his Kevin Annett's, what he alleges.
Yeah.
But he doesn't allege any abuse. Is that?
Well, he doesn't have any evidence to know what happened to these children afterwards. But the unfortunate truth is we can probably anticipate that those children were, in fact, killed, possibly in some form of satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah, but we don't know that, Ben.
No,
I mean,
we don't.
There's no physical evidence of that happened. But
No.
People do make claims about the royal family being involved in dodgy activities, shall we say? But is there any actual evidence of it?
Well, in terms of the royal family, no. But for what happened at the schools, there is evidence, not just eyewitness testimony, but there's archaeological evidence now. Kevin has found bones and teeth, and there's several. And some of this is actually filmed in the Unrepentant movie, where he's basically because thankfully these schools are closed down now, and the last one closed in 1992. Some of them are in ruins, and he's been digging in the ruins.
Right.
And in the basement, they found bones of children.
Right.
Which why would they be there? Why would there be so many bones of children in the basement of a school?
Right. So is he considered some kind of threat when he comes to this country to the establishment, or? Very
much so. I mean, you can imagine.
So just expand on that. Well, I mean, what other than the fact that the Queen and Prince Philip visited in the 1950s and he's claiming that 2 children went missing, other than that, how does it link to Britain? I mean, are there other people implicated?
The way it links to Britain, I think, is because there are very similar stories coming out from institutions in this country. I mean, I don't think it's quite on the same scale, but I mean, if you only have to listen to people like Brian Gerrish or Bill Maloney and the Holly Gregg affair, and you realise that the institutional abuse of children is a very, very serious problem in this country too. I mean, we're far from being some guy in a raincoat on a street corner. Mm-hmm. The person most likely to rape, abuse and kill your child is someone you hand them over to in a social worker's office or in hospital or at a school. Mm-hmm. And this, obviously, I think this is included among, like the UFO issue, it's one of the bigger than bigger secrets. It's one that cannot be told or cannot be revealed without such destructive implications that the government would never survive and society would know it would not function.
And if you are brought into, or you become part of a paedophile ring, then your silence is guaranteed, because you're part of that criminal ring, if you like. So you're not going to speak about other people. So it's kind of a self-protecting unit.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you think that? What do you think what's ultimately going on? Why allegedly certain people of the elite are carrying out these kind of activities?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure exactly why they're doing this to children. One of those could be to mind control the next generation, or to in some way change the next generation of humanity. There's also the allegation is that the aristocracy, the aristocratic bloodlines of Europe, and the elite bloodlines of the United States and the New World, which lead up into the Illuminati, are into the occult, black magic, satanic ritual.
Right.
Either way, I mean, it's either or probably both of those explanations is true, I think. And either way, it's a horrific and one of the most saddest and most tragic things of this that could happen on this world, and it does need to be exposed. And people like Kevin are doing a lot to expose it. But I mean, he is now expanding his work into all kinds of areas. He's exposing corruption. For instance, he wants to arrest the Pope,
Right.
For abuse of children and things like that. He's part of this movement to arrest the Pope.
So does he claim that the Pope has personally abused children?
I don't know if he personally accused that man as an individual, but the man, I think, is an accomplice to child abuse. He knows it's going on, and in fact, he's the head of the institution, one of the biggest institutions perpetrating it. And he, in other words, I mean, if this was a police investigation, he would have been arrested long ago and charged. And
The Pope?
yes.
Yeah.
You know, if this was, for instance, any other organisation, you'd think, the police, why aren't the police going in and talking to him? Because he's the Pope. Yeah. He seems to, he's immune, he's above all that,
Yeah. Yes, so Kevin Annett, has he had similar treatment to Robert Greene then? Has he been arrested at all or put on trial the way that we've seen with Robert Greene over trumped up charges?
Not yet. He's been arrested several times. I don't think he's faced any official criminal charges yet.
Right.
But he's basically, the authorities always have their eye on him, and they're always working to bring him down. I think they're trying. A lot of this pressure put on him is maybe simply to harass him to keep him focused and to keep him downtrodden.
All right, Ben. Well, that's pretty disturbing stuff.
Very.
Where can people see Kevin Annett's film? Just give me the name of the film. So
right. The film's called Unrepentant.
Unrepentant.
If you put that into Google Video, you'll get it. It's a hour and 40-minute long feature-length documentary, which is one of the most upsetting and disturbing films you'll like to see. However, there's one thing would be more upsetting and disturbing if it wasn't there and people weren't talking about it and it wasn't getting exposed. So it's definitely the lesser of two evils.
Okay then, Ben. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts with me today.
Richard.
And again, good luck with your blog website.
Thank you.
And it just remains for me to say, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.